so welcome to this facilitators training for the Massembly at Upgrade Democracy. I'm Marijn, I'm from the Citizens Assemblies Working Group, but also the Communities Assemblies Working Group, and it's all kind of merging into one big deliberative democracy group. And Kathy is in the same working groups with me. And we will be talking you through some key pointers to how to facilitate groups in a deliberative process. We just want to stress, first of all, that it is not essential for the Massembly to have had this training. So there will be groups there who won't have anyone who's had a training like this. That's absolutely fine. Everyone's going to have little packs with cards with them distributed to them with lots of instructions on it, and it's going to be really, really clear what to do. But we do think it makes sense to train up as many people as we can, just so you know what to expect next week. Once you're on the ground, there's lots of people, there's lots of things going on, so it's always good to kind of come feeling a little bit more prepared. So that's why we decided to do this training. But the idea is that it's open for everyone. Anyone can literally join on the spot right there, and we really hope that lots of people will. We hope that lots of Windsor residents will come and join us, and sort of spur of the moment people join us as well. Just be really lovely to get a big group of people engaging with this. So without further ado, I shall share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So, facilitation training for the Massembly at Upgrade Democracy. Ta-da! So just to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about today. So we'll talk you through what is the Massembly, what is a community assembly, the 3 pillars of assemblies, and then especially the role of the facilitator, which is why we're here today. We'll talk you through sort of how it's all going to work during the Massembly, so that you have an idea of what will happen when and the order of things. We'll have a little bit of chat about dealing with difficult interactions should they arise. We'll have a practice session as well, and lots of time for you to ask us questions, and any thoughts or comments you may have as well are all very welcome. But let's dive in first and talk about what is a Massembly. So a Massembly is literally a mass community assembly. So we wanted to do a giant community assembly and see how many people we can get together at one time discussing the same topic. So we'll all be together in Windsor next week, but people will also be joining us online, and we'll probably have some online assemblies afterwards as well. So Massembly, so literally a mass assembly. So it is a giant community assembly. So what is a community assembly? Because we talk about citizens assemblies, we talk about people's assemblies, then you've got community assemblies. So a community assembly is a process that is part of the umbrella term is deliberative democracy. So it's a form of deliberative democracy. And the whole point is that people come together to talk about an issue that really affects their lives, and that are often problematic, and that need to come to a solution together. Often it's quite polarized or divisive subjects that people need to come together as a community to find answers and a way forward. So unlike a citizens assembly, which uses sortition, i.e. random selection, this is self-selected, so anyone can come. But we are, as a working group, we are in the process of figuring out how we could apply a sortition process to community assemblies in the future. So that is quite exciting, but we're not quite ready for that yet. So watch this space. Unlike citizens' assemblies, community assemblies can be really short. They can just be around 90 minutes or a day, whereas citizens' assemblies is numerous days. It's all about group deliberation. So it's listening to each other, having your say, but mostly it's about learning from each other, sharing, collaborating, working together. It's shared decision making, and we rely on the collective wisdom. So everyone brings not just their expertise and knowledge, but also their lived experiences together to come to solutions that are as fair and inclusive for everyone as possible. Unlike people's assemblies, which can be really quick, sort of, are we going to stay and block this bridge, or are we going to go, like, quick decisions that we use in XR a lot. We use people's assemblies a lot for that sort of thing. Community assemblies can be slower. They're often informed by experts, so guest speakers, stakeholders, and people with lived experience, but they don't necessarily have to be. So the Massembly, for example, next week, the information is going to come from information packs, which we'll talk to you about in a moment. And yeah, but what all deliberative processes and assemblies have in common are the three pillars, which Kathy is going to talk us through now.
Yes, so the three pillars are radical inclusivity, active listening, and
trust the process.
Sorry, trust the process. Yes, I'm going to start with the first one. So with radical inclusivity, before an assembly, this isn't specific to the Massembly, but before an assembly, you would let other people know the missing voices. You would try to connect with them. So in order to do that, you would make sure that the assembly was going to be accessible, have disabled access, provision for children, and facilities and comfort for older members of the community. For radical inclusivity, you also need to make sure that no voices dominate, that everyone is heard, and that really people start to think, why am I talking? You can gently manage this domination of voice, something like this, saying, before we take a second question or comment from you, can we make sure that we hear from people who haven't spoken yet? Or let's have a space for those who haven't spoken. For radical inclusivity, you have to make sure that there are no barriers to engagement that you can deal with. So if there's anyone hard of hearing, to let you know, and then we can ask people to speak up, which is this hand movement. We have a inclusivity statement, which I'm going to read to you now, which I don't think is going to be read out during the mass assembly, but is implicit in the content on the cards. So it will come, it will definitely come over. So we value all voices equally in the assembly, as the aim is to hear the wisdom of the crowd gathered here, and not to have the assembly dominated by individual voices or groups. We recognise that confident speakers are not always right, and that those who are not confident speakers will often have the most useful ideas or opinions to put into the discussion. This is why we value all voices equally, and we ask you to do the same. We do not tolerate any calling out, abuse, or shaming, and should conflicts arise in this way, there is a conflict resolution process in place to resolve this. We welcome all people, but not all behaviours. So active listening is the second pillar, and active listening within the assembly context allows the possibility of learning and having our minds changed. A community assembly isn't an arena for intellectual jousting, and we invite you as facilitators to watch for people's fingers going up as soon as someone starts speaking. That's an indicator that they're concentrating really more on their own response rather than actively engaging with what is being said. So we're going to take part in an active listening session in a minute. Anyway, the third pillar is trust the process. Trust the assembly process, trust the facilitators, the participants, and the self-organizing system. Facilitators maintain trust by sticking to the process that's been agreed and ensuring radical exclusivity. That is really the role of the facilitators, to make sure that everybody can have their say. So at the entire assembly will start with small groups. They'll be broken up into small groups of around 6 people each in each group. And on the long walk in Windsor, this will be done by the XR stewards, who will encourage people to sort of not be with people they come with, if possible, into groups of 6. And they will also hand out the pack of cards with the instructions and the information. So in the small groups, the facilitator, which will be one of us, probably, not necessarily, make sure that everyone in the group gets to speak, that no one is interrupted, no one dominates, and to ensure accessibility for all participants. So if someone needs to speak louder, or someone needs to be able to see people's mouths in order to understand them, to make sure that's accommodated. Sometimes people need to speak slower. Some people speak very fast and not everybody can pick up the content. Some people may not be able to sit on the ground, hopefully, because this is contact has been made and suggested that they will have brought a chair, or chair will be provided. But if not, see if you can help. So there's a few more little in-person group facilitation tips. Listen more than you speak. The facilitator is there to enable the conversation, not to sort of control it, but just to enable it. Ensure everyone has the same length of time to speak. Gently intervene to stop interruptions. So, for example, sort of say, remember, everyone is having a turn. Let's make sure everyone has the same amount of time to speak so that it's fair. Ask questions to invite people to speak. Some people need a little bit of encouragement, and you could say something like, is there anything you'd like to add? Or what do you think about that? But also to allow silence to run if people don't come in immediately, because sometimes it does take time to think. Encourage respect. So every participant feels safe to share their ideas. So, for example, if someone looks like they're embarrassed about saying something, reiterate that there's no judgment in this space, all opinions are valid, and there is no right or wrong. Be sensitive to the emotions that may arise, because sometimes they do. And if someone's visibly getting upset, ask them if they would like you to pause the conversation for a moment or move on to the next person, so they may have a bit of time to collect themselves. And also you can say, this is a hard topic. We're all feeling it. You're not alone. Calmly and without judgment, hold the space for participants to agree to disagree. You can literally just say that to the group. It's fine not to agree. We don't have to convince each other of our own views. We are just sharing what we think and listening. Close each activity by summing up the main themes. You can do this together with the note taker. And have fun. A sense of humour makes things work more smoothly. Ryan's going to tell us a little bit more about what will happen at the assembly, the Massembly.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, so as I said, don't worry too much. All of this is going to be described in detail, step by step, on the little pack of cards that you will receive from the stewards at the long walk next week, Saturday. But we will sort of talk you through it a little bit so that there's no surprises and you know what to expect. So, yeah, so you'll be getting 2 packs of cards. You'll be getting the instructions, and then you'll be getting the cards with the actual information that you'll be deliberating on. So first you'll be split up into the small groups of 6 people, again, with the help of the XR stewards. You know, that will obviously take a little bit of time, so don't worry about it too much. Just let it all happen and people will settle and it'll sort itself out. And then once you are in your group, you'll need to quickly identify who will be the facilitator. So as you've now doing this training and you'll have a bit of an understanding, feel free to have the confidence to say, I'm happy to volunteer to facilitate, but you never know, there might be more people facilitating who want to facilitate. Don't feel like you have to, but definitely in most cases, I think people are quite relieved when there is someone volunteering to facilitate. So people will be very happy with you. If there are groups without facilitators and you feel like in your little group there's more, you can see if you can swap or anything like that, but don't worry about it too much. If there are groups without facilitators, again, the cards really do show you how it's all going to work and what to do. So don't waste too much time on that. You know, make sure that you're in your group and you can get going with the process. Your main role as a facilitator is to make sure that everyone's included, everyone gets to speak, no one dominates, and everything that Kathy has just talked us through. Yeah, so Kathy, you're going to talk a little bit more about the...
Yes, a little bit more about the, yes, upgrade democracy, the question. So the information cards, just to let you all know that the information cards are already on the Rebel toolkit, and we'll paste the link into the chat now, but the instruction cards are not on the Rebel toolkit. They'll be given out on the day together with the information cards. So you will have everything you need then. But one of the first things you'll be asked to do in your group is to go around letting everyone introduce themselves. And that's really, keep it quite short, name, where you're from, and maybe what group. But it's really good to keep that short because there is quite a limited time that's been set aside for the Massembly. You as the facilitator will read out the question. You'll probably need to remind your group of the question numerous times. So please make sure you do to keep the conversation focused. And the question is, how might we take meaningful steps to upgrade democracy? We will actually have, Marijn and I were talking about having several sheets of paper ready with the question written out, available on site, and distribute them among the groups, because it's really good to focus to have it actually written in front of you, because otherwise you can really go off topic. So now we're going to do an active listening exercise, because at the Massembly you'd be doing an active listening exercise with your group. So just to give you a bit of idea what it would look like on that, what it will feel like on the day, so that you're prepared, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to pop you into breakout rooms in pairs for about 6 minutes in total. Each person is going to have 3 minutes as a listener and 3 minutes as a speaker. Each of you will talk for 3 minutes about why you're here in this facilitated training today. Things to remember. Again, we say repeat it, they're things that you'll remember as a facilitator. Listen from your heart. Hug with your full attention. The speaker speaks from the heart. Your experiences and feelings about something. Support the person you are listening to with your non-verbal behavior and don't interrupt. No questions other than tell me more or similar open questions. Listening creates a safe space, so it helps people feel respected and honoured, and they're likely to feel open to talking. And active listening is an expression of the XR value. We welcome everyone and every part of everyone. So over to you, Marijn.
Yeah, so this is always exciting. I am going to open the breakout rooms. You can join your breakout rooms now, I think. And I will send you all a message when the 3 minutes are up and it's time to switch to listening or speakers. So good luck, 3 minutes. Okay, how did you find that? Does anybody want to have a little share? How did you find listening in this way and speaking in this way? Did anyone have any thoughts about what that experience was like? And is that something that you experience in everyday life, uninterrupted speaking, or just literally listening without thinking about what you're going to say, but just listening to what they are saying? I always find it quite a refreshing experience, because in normal life you're always like, oh, I need to respond to this. What are my thoughts? What am I thinking? And I quite find it quite relaxing having these active listening exercises where my only job is to listen 100% to this person. Leilani?
Hi, yes, I am. I just really enjoy how refreshing well, that was your word, but kind of engaging, I find it. Like you're listening to a presentation, that's interesting, you're saying good stuff, and then you get a chance to speak and hear another person, and they're speaking from their own personal experience, and it kind of, I feel a little bit more engaged, a little bit more alive, and it was really interesting hearing what Lisa had to say. Check.
Thank you. I also, as you were speaking, I that really connected with me. And what I also feel is that I find it a lot less stressful, because it's like, I know my turn is going to come. I don't need to worry that I need to interrupt somehow and have, elbow my way in. I can take the time to listen, because I know that my time will come, and it makes it all a lot less stressful and yeah, more enjoyable as well in a way. So let's go back to the slides.
So I'm just going to have a little word now about the input phase. So that's when the information, and I think it's important that you're going to be aware that there'll be various forms of reading in this phase, because there's not going to be any speakers. So this is where you, as the facilitator, will need to keep an eye on your group and see if anyone is struggling and help where you can. So are there, to look for whether any members of the group are showing signs of not being able to read for whatever reason. They might have forgotten their specs or something, or reading slowly, and whether they need any help. You need to make sure that no one feels stressed or uneasy about the reading phases. So, for example, one phase is reading to yourself, and then another phase will be reading aloud. And if someone might volunteer to read out somebody else's card if they're not comfortable doing it themselves. Hopefully they'll feel comfortable and safe in the group, and that won't be an issue. But that's something to be on the lookout for. So now Marijn is going to give you the hand signals.
Yeah, so you all already know these hand signals, no doubt. And obviously in XR meetings, we have loads more hand signals. But for the Massembly, we thought let's just talk about the 3 hand signals, rather than giving people 6 different, and then they're all worrying about, oh, which one. Let's make sure we just give them the most common ones. So 1 finger or a hand up means I want to say something. So that's what we call, you go into the stack. So I always see it as like, a stack of books or a stack of pancakes, like 1 person, then you stack them all on top, and that's how you know the order. So You just make sure that, and sometimes what really helps as well, I do that in meetings, is if lots of hands are up and you're like, then you say, okay, I see you, Kathy, I see you, Ned, I see you, Lisa, that people can stop stressing about, oh, have they seen me? And they can go back to active listening because they know they've been seen and they're in the stack and their turn will come. So as a facilitator, sometimes it's quite nice, like, okay, yeah, I've seen you, I've seen you, I've seen you. I'm aware, don't worry, it's under control, go back to listening. Yeah, wavy hands, agreement. It's just nice because if everybody's like, yeah, oh my God, yeah, it can take the flow away from someone's train of thought. So just having the wavy hands. And it's also encouraging if someone a bit shy or isn't quite sure about their point and they're like, maybe this is a stupid idea. If they see some wavy hands, it often gives you a little bit more courage and feeling like, oh yeah, no, I'm onto something here. The clarification, I think, is a really good one. So the C is, XR. Imagine someone coming from, a tourist who's just been to Windsor Castle and is like, oh, I'll join. And we're all talking about XR and NVDA and all that stuff. And they'll be like, yeah, clarification, what is XR, what is NVDA? We can explain. And also for the rest of the group, it's like, oh yeah, hang on. Radical inclusivity, we're talking in acronyms, or we're using words that the rest of the group doesn't understand. Let's make sure we respect that and remind ourselves that we don't all live in the XR bubble, hard as it may be to believe. And yeah, so then we go to the next bit. Kathy?
Right. So voting on Polis. I never know if it's Polis or Polis, so but I would say Polis. There are 2 points at which your group will be inputting onto this online platform, Polis. The hardest thing here is going to be if there's no reception on people's phones to be able to access Polis, but we're not actually anticipating there being a problem, as there was sort of 5G reception during our recce recently. So fingers crossed, it should all be fine. So the first session is when you will vote. You'll go on to Polis and a selection of different ideas will come up, statements, and you vote agree, disagree, unsure on all the statements that come up. You don't add anything new, you just vote on the statements that are already there. And this is before the deliberation phase. And you have just read all the information cards about the various forms of democracy, but you haven't discussed it. So you've got some idea, then you go on to Polis, there are other ideas, and you sort of just whiz through it. It doesn't matter if you do it quickly or slowly. It doesn't matter how many you do, it's not important. But I think that on the card is for about 15 minutes. As a facilitator, before voting yourself, please support anyone in the team who needs help getting started. That would be somebody like me. I better know how to do it before the day. And you'll scan the QR code, which is on the cards, or follow a short link. Then there's another phase when you're going to enter information into Polis, and this is after the deliberation. So one person with your group will submit up to 3 maximum of the group's ideas, and they type each into a box and press submit. After all this is going on, everyone else will go back to Polis to vote on all the new ideas that are coming in from our group, your group, and the other groups as they appear. And then you get an idea of which are the most popular. But feel free to continue discussing and sharing in your group. Marijn is going to now give us a little overview of ways of dealing with difficult interactions. Here's hoping that you don't have any, but it's good to sort of just have thought about it before.
Yeah, so it's unlikely, and I don't think there'll be any really difficult situations as such, but it's good to be prepared, and it's good to sort of have a bit of a brainstorm together about what you could do if things do get difficult in your group, and how you can facilitate your way through it. So yeah, this is a bit of a question for everyone in the group, is do you have any ideas, or have you had any experiences of difficult behavior in these kinds of group situations? I'm just wondering if anyone has any real life examples that they've already witnessed. Feel free to shout out if you have any ideas. Otherwise, Kathy and I have plenty of them. Lisa, go for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say difficult behaviour, but some people like to talk a lot, as we mentioned earlier, and it can be quite, I find it tricky to interject sometimes, and I have done facilitation before, but that for me is one of the most challenging, when someone's confidently talking and they're really telling something that's quite interesting and getting into their stride, but I have to cut them off to bring other people in.
Yeah, definitely. It can be really tricky. And as you say, they might be saying some really interesting stuff, but it's tricky because they are taking up time of other people's opportunity to speak. Leilani?
People interrupting and not really, who maybe haven't really registered that we are taking turns and that it's facilitated, and not understanding the culture shift into the active listening when people are speaking, and then maybe feeling a bit affronted if they're asked to wait and listen to who was actually speaking, because of that not really understanding what they've just stepped into, particularly if they were just passing by and haven't really got what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're in such a culture of debate and pushing our own views, that it can feel really unnatural sometimes when you're like, okay, just listen to what this person's saying, especially if that person doesn't agree with what's being said. It can be really, and it can feel, as the facilitator, can feel really awkward to kind of be like, sit down, so yeah, no, definitely that sort of thing can happen. Any other thoughts on not, I mean, difficult behavior is a bit unfair. It's not, people aren't necessarily trying to be difficult, but I think yeah, as you said, Leilani, like, they're just not used to this kind of way of doing things. Volonta, go for it.
Yeah, this is just a recent experience with a formation group locally, and we were anticipating that there might be a few jousters turning up. That phrase was used previously. So we thought we'd try a wall. So we had, it was a bit of wallpaper actually, we just pinned it up on the wall. And when somebody got a bit carried away with their own contributions, we asked, can you just park that on the wall for us and we'll come back to it? So they literally had to get up from their chairs and go and write it down. So whilst we continued, but we did go back to but the heat had gone out of it. It was just a very useful device. I don't think it's anything we've invented. We got it from somewhere else, but it worked very well. Whether it would work on the long walk in Windsor, I don't know, but
Yeah.
It could be somebody with a pad and some post-it notes just to support that. But I just offer that.
Yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. Yeah, so again, that is dealing with people who are passionate about what they're talking about and are talking a bit either too much or going off topic, or yeah, interrupting other people, and yeah, that sort of thing. Michaela, any other difficult behaviors? I'm going to change that word if we do this presentation again, because it's not a very nice word, but yeah, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, so I haven't done this before, so maybe this is in the instructions when you're talking to your group, but when I'm doing workshops with kids at school, we agree this before we even start. So we talk about, everybody having their chance to speak, listening respectfully, being kind. Obviously, this is in child appropriate language, but is there an opportunity at the beginning to just sort of emphasize that, so that if you do need to kind of encourage somebody else to speak, or discourage somebody from continuing to speak, you can just refer back to that gently.
Yeah, lovely idea. And that what you said there is a really interesting, and that's why I think the term difficult behavior is actually a wrong term. My apologies for that. But people not speaking is also tricky as a facilitator, because you don't want to be like, you haven't spoken, you must now speak. But you also want to make sure that they have their voice heard. So that is also very tricky, and as a facilitator, something to look at. So we have, on the one hand, people speaking too much, but you can also have people not speaking enough. Jasmine, do you have any other difficult behavior you want to share with us that you've come across?
I mean, to your point, I can't remember who spoke before me about expectations, but when I was in the XR London envisioning meeting earlier this year, what I think was quite useful when we were doing a sort of community assembly was setting expectations about time blocking, and I think within our group set a timer for each person to speak when we would go around. So it would set quite clear boundaries about how long you can speak for and who should be speaking at what point, which I think was useful in terms of dealing with people who maybe don't speak as much or who speak too much. But yes.
Did you find any other behaviors other than people speaking too much or too little? Were there any other sort of difficult behaviors that you found out? Or do you think those are the main two camps, really, in terms of tricky situations?
Another thing is that we kind of came across was keeping on topic, but I think some people are particularly enthusiastic about a particular topic that they want to share with other people, which is interesting but may not be relevant to the discussion at hand. But I think we kind of talked about that already, but yes.
But I think it's a great one to bring up. I don't think it's been necessarily addressed in this one, but that is also, in a way, a difficult thing to hold as a facilitator, is when people do go off topic. And obviously this is a huge question, how might we take meaningful steps to upgrade democracy? Anything could happen, anything could come up. So as a facilitator, this is a really tricky one as well to hold and make sure that they stay on topic, which is why sometimes it's nice to have that sheet of paper, but we'll talk about solutions in a second. I'm just really interested in the sort of tricky situations for now, so that we can kind of envisage what sort of things we might be dealing with. Ned?
I don't have a solution because we didn't find one, but we had somebody, this wasn't an assembly, this was just a Zoom meeting, and we had somebody join who was new, but interrupted and talked over everybody all the time, even when we explained about hand signals and asking them to pause. But they then said at the end that they were autistic and had ADHD. So how does anybody have any techniques or ideas about how to facilitate that?
That's a really great one, Ned. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that in a second, because we do have little tricks up our sleeves of things like that we can definitely help with. So we've got people talking too much, people talking very little or not at all, got people going off topic. We've got people with special needs that could be in your group that you might not be aware of. We've got people interrupting and people going off topic. I think I said that already. Yeah, Jasmine, did you have another one? Or is that an old hand?
That was an old hand, sorry.
Okay, great. So yeah, these are all things that we come across really, really frequently. Other things is that people don't trust the process. So people start to interfere with the process, and they're like, we should be doing it like this, and we should be doing it like that. And you're like, no, we spend a lot of time and energy designing this process, so you'll get you might get that, that people are like, we should be running it like this. It can happen. I don't expect that we'll have actual aggressive behavior, but you never know. There might be people who are actually just very unkind and aggressive, so we'll have a little look at how to deal with that as well. But I think those are sort of the main themes that I'm getting from everyone here, of some of the things that you might come across in group deliberation situations, and you as the facilitator get to see if you can resolve any of these issues. So some ideas for dealing with difficult interactions, for lack of better word. Yeah, so I think exactly as was mentioned before already by Michaela, and I think a couple of other people, that you sort of frame it at the start of the group discussion before you even start deliberating on the topic. And I think the cards are going to take you through it. So it's that inclusion statement is that we welcome all people, but we don't welcome all behaviors. And making sure, we explain about active listening and those things, so that there is straight away an expectation and an understanding. And you might need to repeat that several times, because again, there might be people in there who've never been in this sort of environment before, and they might need reminding. So just remember that, everyone is welcome to speak, everyone is welcome to have an opinion, but we don't interrupt, and we respect each other, and that sort of thing. What is harder is when you need to move in to when people are disruptive or taking over or interrupting other people. So the key thing to do that, because people really respond to the concept of fairness. So a thing that is really useful is, what you're saying is so interesting, and I totally understand, but we have a very limited amount of time available to us, and it isn't fair if some people have more time to speak than others. So make sure, you all get 2 minutes to speak, or you all get blah, blah, blah. We want to make sure everybody has the time. So really bringing it back to fairness. It's not that you're not interested. It's not that you don't think what they are saying isn't important, but it's about, you're in a group, and you as the facilitator want to make sure that everybody gets the same experience and the same amount of, airtime, so to speak. If people are bringing in a lot, they're like, this is what it should be, and this is what it should be. That is also, it can be very useful. You might have some amazing democracy expert in your group, and it might be really helpful, but that person's input is not worth more than other people's opinions and thoughts as well. So you can thank them for their input, and try and maybe summarize what's back to them, what they've said, and then say thank you so much, and your time's up now. Let's make sure that we hear from everybody else. Yeah, and as I said, really explain the situation, explain again and again, and often you have to say the same thing several times before people really get it. I think a few of you mentioned that as well, that they sort of, people who were new to this kind of process needed a few reminders. So just explain, we've only got 40 minutes, we have quite a lot to get through, everybody should be heard, and that sort of thing. So yeah, am I missing anything? Sorry, I'm going totally off script here. Yeah, if it's really, I think with the sort of ADHD or that kind of situation, I think at the start of your deliberation, or when you get together in the group, it is always useful to say, does anybody have any needs? Often it's about, oh, I don't hear very well, or I have to be able to see someone's lips, or or like Kathy said, I've forgotten my glasses, I can't read, you know, that sort of thing. But sort of encourage people to bring out, sometimes as the facilitator, you can be like, I'm really sorry, but, you know, if someone speaks very quietly, I might have to ask you to repeat yourself, you know, I'm really sorry about that. It just makes people feel a little bit more comfortable to share something about themselves. Like if they do have, you know, difficulties concentrating or difficulties knowing when to stop speaking, that's totally fine. And hopefully they will feel comfortable enough to identify that up front. It's not always the case, and it isn't easy. But what I often do is, if you really realize like this person just needs a little bit of one-on-one time, you're like, you know, I'm so sorry. I know there's so much to unpack here, but we have such limited time. Can you stay behind afterwards? Can we have, you know, can you tell me more about it? Or, you know, can we continue this conversation afterwards? So that they know, like, you are interested, you do want to know, there just isn't time. Leilani, go for it.
Hi, yes, it was just because you were talking about neurodiversity. I have some personal and family experience, and also my raised one daughter with neurodiversity. One thing that I developed working with her was just a very simple hand signal that is like just gradually decrease. It looks a little bit like the clarification one, but gradually decreasing the time. Okay, so I'm going to need you to finish up in this much time, and it gives the person a chance to feel that they're not being stopped, but it's like, okay, you've got this much time left, and it's quite visual, and it seemed to really help her to come to the end of her flow and conclude her point, and then say thank you.
I love that. I've never heard that before. I think that is such a nice one. We have like this sort of round up, round off symbol in XR, which is also quite gentle. It's a bit like you're holding a big ball. But I love this like physically showing the time. Yeah, I mean,
it's just that bit more specific. So for someone who doesn't get implication, round off, well, when? Round off, is that quick? Is that slow? Yeah. I mean, it can go on forever. Like, but this is actually okay. Yeah, this is how much time you've got left.
Yeah.
Really,
I love that. I think that's so nice. I've never heard that before. So
I made it up. I invented it.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's the Leilani hand signal. Yeah, no, I love that. That's really nice. So yeah, use that. Yeah, and then if it's really, you just go, yeah, I think maybe don't do that with neurodiverse people. You can do that with your friends or your little brother or something. Yeah, there's other techniques like avoiding eye contact. Some people really swear by it. I've never done that, so, but you know, feel free to experiment. It's all about experimentation. And yeah, just repeat again, like, well, we're here to answer this question. Repeat the question. You'll have to repeat the question several times. People will go off topic. They will tell you about their cousins and their cats and the trees in their gardens, and you know, it will all so, and it's lovely, but we don't have time. So you just be like, amazing. Remember, the question is this, and hopefully Kathy and I will have lots of pieces of paper, enough to distribute around all the groups, where you can just be like, yes, how are we going to upgrade democracy? So those are just some pointers. As you can see, there's lots more, so feel free to share them with each other as well if you think of more things that you can do to de-escalate. And then obviously, if it gets really aggressive, then stewards will be there. You're not going to be alone. I would be super surprised, but if it does happen, then our old de-escalation techniques, stay seated, stay calm, don't raise your voice, all that kind of stuff, and just gently flag one of the stewards. But I would be really surprised if this is needed, but it's good to know you're not there alone. There's lots of support for you out there on the long walk. And I will now hand over to Kathy.
I think two really helpful things is that perhaps wasn't mentioned is that there will be a timekeeper. One person in the group will be offering to be a timekeeper, and that will help keep things, if another person sort of pips up and says, oh, it's time to go on to the next person, and also having the question written down so you can keep pointing back to it. So right, now we're going to do a practice session. It's always good to do a practice session. And you're going to be put into breakout rooms again. And you are going to address in a question, how do we grow the XR community? Perhaps we should put that in the chat so people can see it. And when you're in the group, if someone could volunteer to be a facilitator, someone to be a note taker, and someone to be a timekeeper. So in order, well, we can maybe, yes, you'll deliberate on the question for 5 minutes, and then so one person is facilitating, note taking, timekeeping for 5 minutes, and then you will move on to somebody else. You'll change roles. So I think Marijn will pop into the chat and tell you when 5 minutes are up. And so that if you all have an experience in doing it, so we'll repeat it, I think 3 times, and then we'll bring you all back into the room. It's going to Leilani is going to report back from our group what we did. Yeah, is that what you wanted to do? Yeah.
Yep, sure, okay. And about going out to other groups, connecting with people in different ways, giving them felt experiential sense of different ways of being and different ways of doing things. That we also widened the question out from how to get more people involved with XR. It was more about how to spread the reach of XR purpose and values and way of working, and so more going out rather than drawing in necessarily. Check.
Well, we didn't really allocate someone to report back. Does someone from the group want to report back? Sorry. Michaela.
Well, I can do the notes that I took, but somebody was taking notes before me, so I might not remember all those points. But yeah, we were just talking about how we could link. Oh no, the best one was to have XR t-shirts. I think that was Warren saying how some t-shirts have got a little bit of branding. I think he's talking about like on the back shoulder or something, and how we could have a little kind of, high-end XR t-shirts. So that was an idea. Jasmine talked about how as an XR steward, there might be a way to connect with other stewards working in other complementary fields, like the fossil-free parliament and things like that, so that stewards can come together to try and support each other at their own events. And then I can't remember who said it, but sort of making more of people who actually open their emails from XR. I didn't even know you could do that. You could find that out. But anyway, so I'm not sure what that meant, but that would seem like a smart thing if you actually know who's opening your emails. And then there was a suggestion that like the Church of England particularly have a really strong eco groups. They actually nominate some of their churches as eco churches, and that maybe XR could kind of make an introduction there. What else did we talk about? Oh yeah, just trying to maybe get people more engaged with the climate emergency through most people's love of nature and biodiversity. Lots of people who support, as we know, all those nature charities and animal charities who perhaps don't give much time to thinking about the climate crisis quite so much, but obviously, as we know, they're completely interlinked. That's all I remember.
Great. Yeah, lots of really interesting stuff. So actually, those of you who did minute take or note take, if you have time to type it up sometime, because I think even though it's just meant to be a practice session, I think some really good ideas came out of it. So that was really good. I was just curious to see, how did people find the facilitation experience? How did you find being, I know it's sort of, you know, it's like a sort of test experiment, you know, it's not real, but how did you find being the facilitator? Was there anything that you struggled with, something that you found easy, or do you have comments on others who facilitated in your group and things that they did you thought were good? Jasmine, go for it.
I think something that I need to pay attention to, and I think other people in my group did it particularly well, is to stop speaking and listen more. I think the kind of active listening rather than trying to explain what people are talking about as a way of kind of moving on is something that maybe something I need to think about more. But yes, I think the thing about acknowledging points and then moving swiftly on and giving time for others to speak was a really good point to that I saw and I need to practice.
Ned?
Yeah, after you got bumped out, Jasmine, one of the things we discussed was reflecting back. And I'd questioned about, should that be a technique that we use and reflect back everything, although that would obviously double the amount of time that we were speaking. And Marijn said, actually, it's a really good de-escalation technique, that if you've got somebody really angry or upset or, you know, high emotion, reflecting back to them can actually de-escalate. So I think it's picking and choosing your moment as to when to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We were actually really impressed with you, Jasmine. Just unfortunately, you didn't hear the feedback because you got kicked out. But so just for the other group, I was pretending to be quite an irate person who wanted to throw red paint at SUVs, and Jasmine very calmly repeated back to me what I'd said and said, "That's interesting, but we have our principles and values and da da da." So we were all actually really impressed at how you de-escalated that. So yeah, I think there's a time for active listening and repeating back if it helps calm the situation. And I think you did it really, really well. So yeah, well done. I don't know, Kathy, if you took on the role of disruptive participant, didn't you? Oh, you're so good. No, I was trying to be very disruptive. Yeah. Michaela?
Oh, I was just going to pop it in the chat. No, I just wanted to remind everyone in our group and the other group of Jasmine's amazing new slogan, which is outreach, not outrage, to her angry participants.
Yeah. Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah, really well done. I think everybody actually dealt really well with the interruptions. Everyone was very sort of kind, patient, not dismissive, but kind of saying like, okay, yeah, you know, why don't we talk about it later or whatever. Yeah, so really well done, everyone. Anyone in the other group that they had things? I realize we're over time now, guys, anyway. So, but if there's anything that you'd still like to share with the group, please feel free. And also, if you've got any questions, Michaela, I know you had a question. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please do feel free to ask them. And sorry for running late.
Shall I just quickly ask my question, Ryan? It's just this might be in the links about the instructions and stuff, but I haven't heard of Polis. So is the idea that when the group starts, everyone, is it an app? Does everyone download it onto their phone? And you, so that everyone is putting their vote in individually on their phone at that point, even but presumably you're discussing everything. Or if it's in the instructions, that's fine, I'll just read it, but I just wondered if anyone has experience of it.
So Polis is an online website, it's not an app. On the instruction cards, you'll have a QR code and the link, so you can just scan the QR code to access it. That'll take you to a specific place on Polis, and it'll be, the instructions are also on there as well. And you can follow those, and you can vote for certain statements on your phone. If somebody hasn't got a phone, please make sure that you share your phones with each other. And then at the end, once you, as a small group, have decided on your 3 top hot ideas, the note taker can add those into Polis, and then other people can vote on those, and you can carry on voting afterwards as well. We're planning on having a series of online assemblies after Upgrade Democracy, so that we keep gathering input into Polis, and that voting will be able to take place after Upgrade Democracy. But yeah, it will be the set of instruction cards that we've given you at the moment haven't got the QR code or the link on them, because we don't want people going to Polis beforehand. But the ones you'll have at Upgrade Democracy will have the QR code.
Yeah.
In answer to, oops, there was a question. Oh, there you are, Leilani. No, you don't need to sign into it. You don't need to sign up for it. The QR code will take you there.
Did you have another question, Leilani?
Yes, right at the start, when we're formed into small groups, will there be any, whoever's facilitating the whole thing, the mass assembly, will they say there may be people in your group who have done this training? Because certainly I would find it a lot easier to step in if it's kind of, oh yeah, I've done the training, and then you're kind of invited in, rather than saying, oh, by the way, I've done the training. It's kind of a bit like setting myself up for something.
That's a really good point. And actually, we hadn't thought about it like that. We purposely thought not to interfere with that, because it's, you know, we just let people self-organize. But we hadn't thought about people being humble and sweet and saying, I don't want to, you know, push myself forward. I think, you know, I think people will actually be really grateful if there is someone who says, you know, I can facilitate.
But the distinction I find is whether a role is given or taken, and there's a big dynamic and energetic difference. So if the role is given, you may have someone who has done the training, maybe could check in or select someone else if not. I mean, it's then you're given a role, you're asked to be doing that, and then if there is difficulty in the group, well, I'm doing it on your behalf. I've been asked. The group has asked, rather than I put myself forward and you can push me back. That there is a very different, you know, if you don't have socially accepted rank, you know, some people have rank because they're white, cis, male, whatever, but some people don't, and there's a different dynamic there.
Such a good point. I don't think we've considered that, actually. Ned, go for it.
Just wondering whether we could say to people, when you get into groups of 6, could you do a go round and say, anybody in the group like to facilitate? And people raise their hands. Anybody like to note take? Same. Anybody like to time keep? Same. And then from there, you can say, okay, so as a group, can we just choose somebody at random from the group to do each of the roles from those who've raised their hands? And then it's a fair way to say, okay, yeah, this person, everybody indicates this person, they can facilitate. I know it's a difficult way to select somebody, but I can't see another way of doing it, because otherwise everybody will just be silent and not say, yes, I can facilitate, or yes, I can note take.
I've lost the stack a little bit. I think Leilani, Michaela, and Jasmine.
I think it was Jasmine first. I'm not sure.
Jasmine first.
Oh, was it Jasmine first? Oh, sorry, Jasmine. Go for it.
No, it's okay. I just didn't raise my hand officially. I was wondering if this is something that maybe the stewards can kind of help out with when we're giving out the instructions. I don't know what the situation is like in terms of communicating that information. but it might be an option that when giving out the information and imparting and helping to group people, the stewards could let the groups know that there are people with facilitation training, and if they would volunteer, that would be great. Something like that. I don't know, but yes.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think we need to go back to our group. Funnily enough, the group was like, no, we don't need that. People will figure it out.
The basic idea really is that all the information the person who agrees to facilitate is on the cards. And if you wait, you know, in a way, it's a more equal, a more level playing ground, and some people have done the course and some haven't, but that's it.
No worries. No, I was just going to say, obviously, there's a big difference between being a timekeeper and a note keeper and a facilitator. You know, the facilitator's role, I mean, the fact that we're all here tonight is because actually it's an advantage having a bit of understanding of the role. So to just offer it out, you know, as somebody who's now done a bit of work tonight on it, to go into a group and then hand it over to somebody who's never had any experience, is that a good idea?
I don't know, Kathy.
I mean,
Ned?
isn't it a really important job of facilitator?
Ned.
Yeah, so just going back to the suggestion of using the stewards, I think that's a really good idea. And what we could do is add to the stewards briefing to say, by the way, as part of your role as stewards, when you're handing out the cards, could you mention to people that there are trained facilitators around who will be able to help out, and they can identify themselves in the group? Personally, but that will be reliant on there being enough stewards, of course. So we need to, I think, do both. We need to make sure that we've got the stewards briefed, but also within the groups, the idea behind the cards are that they are so clearly laid out that anybody can facilitate, that you don't have to have training. It's all explained on the cards as the step-by-step process. But I personally, what I would say is I have done the facilitation training. I'm happy to facilitate, but I'm equally happy for anybody else to facilitate. And if you want help and support and you've never done it before, then I'll sit beside you. And when you want help, just ask, so that they've got a bit of backup, feel supported if they've never done it, but they want to give it a go.
That's a good idea. I also, in the chat, just to say that Lisa saying when she helped at a local community assembly, the facilitators were asked to put their hands up to identify themselves, and groups formed around them. The thing is, like, we just don't know. I mean, is it going to be 1,000 people or is it going to be 50 people? Like, I think we just don't know what to expect. So I think, yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I'm not sure. Kathy?
We had a discussion about that because one of the things was, well, people who've been trained as facilitators, perhaps they should wear a yellow vest or something. But then it was decided not to, that it would then immediately put people, oh, I haven't got a facilitator. And the idea is that, you know, to facilitate, I mean, the basic thing, your role is to make sure that everyone has a turn. And that, you know, I think generally people will be quite respectful. They generally are. But I think because otherwise, you know, that you'd create a whole sort of fuss if people are looking for facilitators. And really, it is all laid out. They don't talk about the inclusion statement isn't on there, but the whole thing is about active listening, about respect, about everybody having a turn, having a voice, valuing each other. So that gets read out by, you know, it's on the cards. So hopefully, well, we'll get some feedback afterwards.
It's all part of an experiment. Yeah, just to say to Michaela in the chat, she's asking how we did it at the big one last year. And I think it was a similar thing that anyone could facilitate, and there were instructions on the cards then as well. So yeah, I think let's give it a go. I really hope that all of you get the opportunity to facilitate in your groups, because, you know, from what I've seen so far, you've all been really great. But yeah, it is very much an experiment. So I'm sure things will go wrong, and it'll be, you know, fun and chaotic, I think. But yeah, but thank you so much for raising that, because it just, I just assume, yeah, it's, thank you. It's food for thought, definitely, and we'll certainly bring it back to the organizing group as well to think about. Are there any further questions? Also, Kathy and I will be on the ground all 3 days, like on the Friday and the Saturday before the Massembly. So if there are things that suddenly you're like, oh my God, I need to ask this question, like, do come and grab us. We'll be around anyway. So yeah, but any further urgent questions now?
I think just don't panic and enjoy it. It will be an interesting
enjoy it. Yeah.
experience. It always is.
Like, just, you know, the idea that we'll be doing this like super deliberative, inclusive form of democracy right in the shadows of Windsor Castle, I think is going to be quite a powerful thing, you know, of the sort of least democratic power to maybe one of the most democratic processes. I think that in itself, I think, will be a really pretty amazing experience, hopefully, unless it pisses it down. On that note, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording.
Oh,
It's going to be a heat wave. It's going to be 29 degrees on the Friday.
oh my God. Oh,
Ciao.
hats, lotion, water, and more water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. I look forward to
Wait to see you all.
meeting. I look forward to meeting you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye all.